Many researchers have noted the link between innovation and firm survival. Firms that innovate are more profitable than their rivals. Before we consider this link in further detail, let's consider the opposite. Can you think of any examples of firm failure due to a lack of innovation? Perhaps you thought of Nokia, a company which once dominated the mobile phone market. In Canada, many point to Research in Motion, maker of the first smartphone, BlackBerry. At one point, BlackBerry controlled 50% of the US smartphone market. The full keyboard made it easy to type emails on the phone at any time when other phones required you to hit the number 7 4 times to get to the letter S. Perhaps another example that came to mind when thinking about firms that have failed due to a lack of innovation is Kodak. Somewhat ironically, digital cameras were invented in Kodak's R&D lab in the 1970s. Rather than recognizing the potential of the invention, Kodak focused on the flaws. At the time, the company was making money from selling and developing film. They focused on short-term profits at the expense of long-term profit potential. The company filed for bankruptcy protection in 2012. Western Union is a brand known around the world for their money transfer systems, but the company began as a telegraph company. At one point, they were the biggest communications company in the world. Even when new technologies were handed to them, they failed to recognize that good ideas could come from outside the organization. Alexander Graham Bell offered to sell his telephone technology to Western Union for $100,000 and was basically laughed out of the room. From Western Union's perspective, they were the world's experts in communication. What could anyone else possibly have to teach them? While the company has managed to hang on, they no longer have the prominence in the communications industry that they once possessed. Unlike the previous companies, many businesses have managed to adjust and pivot over the years to maintain market presence and success. While you may not have heard of it, Stora, now Stora Enso, is one of the oldest continuously operating companies in the world. The company began as a mining company in 1288. Over the next few centuries, it expanded into the mining of iron. By the 19th century, it had evolved into a timber and forestry company involved in pulp and paper production. Today, they are leaders in the packaging sector, helping companies use renewable biomaterials and creating intelligent packaging solutions. An iconic Canadian brand, Hudson's Bay Company, is older than Canada itself. The company began in the 1600s and successfully operated in the fur trading business for many decades. In the 1850s, the company shifted its focus from the fur trade to real estate and was heavily involved in the development of Western Canada. Their land ventures gave them access to natural resources, and the company started to engage in oil production. The company had always dabbled in retail, but really expanded their retail operations with the opening of department stores in 1913. Today, they are one of Canada's most recognizable brands. Pop quiz. What do the M's of 3M stand for? You probably don't have any idea. Minnesota, mining, and manufacturing. The company got its start in the U.S. state of Minnesota as a corundum mine. What the heck is a corundum, you ask? No problem, I had to go Google it too. Corundum is a mineral used for making abrasives like sandpaper. Turns out that the material in the mine they bought was a low-grade product, and the company pivoted into their production of sandpaper. This initial pivot, almost right at the onset of the company, helped create a company culture of innovation and collaboration. The company invented masking tape and cellotape, otherwise known as their brand Scotch tape. They created reflective sheeting used in many traffic signs. They also created Scotchgard to protect fabric furniture. The company created a whole new market with the invention of Post-its. In 2014, the company was issued its 100,000th patent and maintains a culture of innovation. The company is involved in the healthcare industry, N95 masks, electronics, safety, and consumer products. There is a clear link between innovation and economic growth. Reports by McKinsey, PwC, and many academic institutions illustrate time and time again how these two elements strongly correlate. What is less clear is exactly how innovation spurs growth, though there are some theories. Most theories revolve around three ideas: that innovation results in rises in productivity, that innovation increases wealth, and that innovation leads to greater efficiency. Innovation leads to greater productivity. In other words, the same input, labor capital, raw materials, lead to a greater output, finished goods. As productivity rises, more goods and services are produced. In other words, the economy grows. The link between innovation and productivity is well documented. When workers can produce more, they earn more. As illustrated in the chart, labor, productivity, and compensation have increased hand in hand. These improvements in compensation result in higher living standards. This reflects the innovation that have made businesses and people more productive. If the typical worker in 1982 wanted to purchase something with computing power of an iPad 2, it would have cost more than 360 years' worth of wages. Innovation leads to a lower cost to produce goods and services, further increasing wealth by increasing the number of quality goods for purchase. Lastly, innovation leads to greater efficiency. One example is demonstrated in this chart. Prior to the introduction of mobile phones in southern India, fishermen would blindly take their catch to market. Sometimes there were many customers, and fishermen were able to sell all of their catch. Other times, many fishermen would go to the same market, and the resulting competition lowered prices, and some fish would go to waste. On average, about 7% of the fishermen reported waste, and on some days, almost 24% of fishermen lost money on wasted fish. When cell phones were introduced, fishermen could find out what the price was in different markets and take their fish to markets with higher demand. The result was the virtual eradication of wasted fish.